The High Council had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years. Their empire stretched across 700 star systems. Their warships numbered in the millions. Their technology was ancient and perfect. No species had ever challenged them and survived. When their scouts discovered Earth in the distant Orion Arm, they saw nothing special. Just another primitive world with soft creatures who had barely reached their own moon. Ambassador stood before the council with his report. His 4 eyes blinked slowly as he spoke. The humans were weak, he explained. They fought among themselves constantly. Their bodies were fragile. They could not see in the dark. They could not hear beyond a narrow range. They lived for barely a century before dying of old age. The council members laughed at this. A species that could not even agree on a single government. A species divided by imaginary lines on their tiny world. Surely these creatures posed no threat to the mighty empire. The decision was made in less than an hour. Earth would become a mining colony. The humans would serve as labor. Those who resisted would be eliminated. It was the same process they had used on 200 other worlds. The fleet admiral, a decorated warrior named, was given command of the invasion force. He took only 50 warships. It seemed more than enough for a world that had never seen interstellar travel. The invasion began on a Tuesday morning. The ships appeared in Earth's sky without warning. Their energy shields deflected every missile and bullet the humans fired. Their plasma cannons turned military bases into craters. In the first hour, they destroyed every satellite. In the second hour, they took control of every communication network. By the third hour, the major governments of Earth had surrendered. Admiral smiled his thin smile and declared the conquest complete. His report to the council was brief and confident. Earth had fallen. The humans had submitted. All was proceeding according to plan. For 3 years, they occupied Earth. They forced humans to work in massive mines that the planet's surface. They took resources without care for the environment. They treated humans as animals, lower than their own pets. The human population dropped by 2 billion through starvation, disease, and execution. Resistance movements formed and were crushed. Leaders who spoke against the occupation disappeared in the night. Children grew up knowing nothing but fear and slavery. But they made a terrible mistake. They assumed that breaking the human governments meant breaking the human spirit. They did not understand that humanity's greatest strength was not in their armies or their weapons. It was something deeper, something that had lost long ago in their 1,000 generations of easy conquest. The humans had something burning inside them that refused to die. They called it many things in their many languages: hope, defiance, rage, the will to survive against all odds. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, in tunnels that had once stored nuclear weapons, a group of scientists worked in secret. They had been smuggled out of major cities during the first days of the occupation. Among them was Dr. Sarah, a physicist who had spent her career studying theoretical energy fields. Before the invasion, her work had been dismissed as impractical dreams. Now, with stolen technology to study, her dreams became reality. The aliens had shields that stopped all human weapons. Found a way through them. In the slums of New Delhi, a former software engineer named Raj built a network. It spread slowly at first, then faster. Communications that looked like ordinary data traffic. Messages hidden in images and songs. An underground army that existed in the shadows of the occupation. Every city had cells. Every factory had spies. They never saw it growing because they never thought to look. Why would slaves need to communicate? Why would broken creatures plan anything? In the ruins of Moscow, a retired general named trained fighters. Not in the old ways of tanks and aircraft. Those were useless now. He taught them patience. He taught them to strike and vanish. He taught them that one human with knowledge and purpose was worth 1,000 soldiers who had grown soft from easy victories. His students spread across the world, teaching others what they had learned. They noticed small things at first. A mining transport that crashed because of sabotaged controls. A power station that exploded without explanation. Guards who vanished during night patrols and were found dead in the morning. Admiral increased security. He executed suspected rebels publicly. He burned entire neighborhoods that harbored resistance fighters. None of it worked. The incidents only increased. 5 years after the invasion, the signal went out. It traveled through Raj's hidden network to every corner of the planet. A single word in every human language. Tonight. The uprising began at midnight, coordinated across every time zone. In command centers around the world, human workers who had been invisible servants for years suddenly produced weapons. Doctors' technology worked perfectly. Small devices that created brief openings in the alien shields. For just 3 seconds, they were vulnerable. 3 seconds was enough. Admiral was in his command ship when the alarm started. Reports flooded in from every continent. Bases falling. Soldiers dying. Weapons that somehow penetrated their shields. He ordered reinforcements from orbit, but his orbital platforms had already been taken. Human technicians who had been allowed to maintain the systems had instead learned to control them. The Admiral tried to call for help from the nearest fleet. His communications were jammed by his own equipment. The battle for Earth lasted 3 days. When it ended, not a single remained alive on the planet. Admiral died when his command ship was destroyed by missiles fired from the orbital platforms he had thought were secure. His last transmission to the Council was a scream of disbelief. How could this happen? How could primitives defeat the greatest empire in the galaxy? The High Council received the news with shock and then fury. They had lost 50 warships and 90,000 soldiers to creatures they considered barely intelligent. This could not stand. High Commander was given a fleet of 5,000 vessels, the largest military force assembled in 3 centuries. His orders were simple: destroy Earth, kill every human, leave nothing alive. The fleet arrived in Earth's solar system expecting easy revenge. What they found instead was a nightmare. In the 5 years of occupation, humans had not only learned technology, they had improved it. The alien ships that had been captured during the uprising had been studied, reverse-engineered, and rebuilt. Where there had been 50 alien vessels, there were now 300 human ships. They were smaller and faster. Their weapons were different. Their tactics were insane. Human pilots flew like nothing had ever seen. They accelerated at speeds that should have killed them. They made maneuvers that broke every rule of space combat. They attacked without formation, without order, each ship acting independently yet somehow working together. The fleet was designed to fight enemies who followed logical patterns. These enemies followed no patterns at all. The Battle of Saul lasted 2 weeks. When it ended, 3,000 ships had been destroyed. High Commander retreated with what remained of his forces. His report to the Council was filled with horror. The humans were not primitives, they were predators. Everything about them was designed for survival and conflict. They did not just fight to defend themselves, they fought with joy. They took pleasure in victory. They learned from every defeat and came back stronger. The Council tried 3 more times to destroy humanity. Each attempt failed worse than the one before. The humans did not wait to be attacked. They pushed outward, taking the fight to space. They freed the slave worlds the Empire had conquered over. Species that had been broken for generations suddenly found hope again. They joined the humans. An alliance formed. It grew stronger with each passing month. Within 20 years, the Empire no longer existed. Its leaders were dead or scattered. Its fleets were destroyed. Its conquered worlds were free. The humans had not just survived. They had reshaped the entire galaxy. But the most frightening thing for the other species was not the human military power. It was what came after. The humans did not become new tyrants. They did not enslave their defeated enemies. They offered peace. They shared technology. They helped rebuild worlds that had been devastated by war. They created the Galactic Council, where every species had an equal voice. The other races could not understand this. How could creatures so fierce in war be so gentle in peace? How could they destroy their enemies one day and feed them the next? The answer was something the old empires had never known. The humans called it compassion. They had suffered under tyranny, and they would not inflict that suffering on others. They had fought not for conquest, but for freedom. Now that freedom was won, they wanted nothing more than to share it. Ambassador, the same who had first recommended the invasion of Earth, lived to see the new galaxy take shape. He was an old being now, his 4 eyes dim with age. At a council meeting 30 years after the war, a young human diplomat approached him. She asked if he regretted what his people had done. Was silent for a long moment. Then he spoke. His people had ruled through fear for 10,000 years. They had believed that strength meant dominance, that power meant cruelty. The humans had shown them another way, a way where strength protected the weak, where power built rather than destroyed. In the end, he said, the humans had not just defeated they had saved them from themselves. The young diplomat smiled and offered her hand, hesitated, then took it. It was a human gesture of friendship he had learned. Simple, strange, but somehow it meant more than all the weapons and warships in the galaxy. The stars continued to burn in the endless darkness of space, but for the first time in 10,000 years, they shone on a galaxy that was truly free. And at its heart were the humans, the species that nobody had expected to matter. The species that had taught the universe that true power was not in domination, but in the courage to be kind even after being hurt. The galaxy had learned its lesson, and humanity, once a tiny species on a tiny world, had become something the universe would never forget.